Yeah, hi, good morning all. Thank you for all joining. I'm really pleased to have Jo on this call offering this Q&A. I've known Jo professionally a number of years now, and for me, she's the #1 expert in delivering and running online sessions. Now, obviously with COVID, it sort of disrupted the world of learning and development as well as the wider world. And obviously we all knew there was a lot of people sort of looking to change their delivery method, and for lots of people I think within the industry it's been a new approach. We conducted some research. I think out of the respondents, 70% of people switched L&D from face-to-face to virtual classrooms, and the 25% of respondents were having to run virtual sessions for the first time. So we know it can be daunting, but this is why Jo is here, available to answer your questions, give her hints and tips and insights on what good online facilitation and learning looks like. So I'll pass you back to Jo, and yeah, as Jo mentioned, please put your questions in the comment box.
Thank you very much, Blake. What a lovely introduction. And it's been a good number of years, as you say, and I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with everybody today. So this is me, Lightbulb Moment. I founded about 7 years ago, and we focus specifically on webinars and virtual classrooms. What we do is we help teams of people, usually learning and development, but also more broadly, and we help them learn how to design and deliver great webinars, great virtual classrooms, to get confident and also get happy doing that and to really love what they're doing. We also have Mike with us today, and Mike is our producer. He's in the chat window. He's there to help you with any technical problems you have, and also will be sharing various links and stuff for us as well. And you might be thinking, he's got the same last name as Jo, and he does. We are brother and sister, and we run our company together. So first of all, let's just make sure we've got our online tools that we know how to use. You should be able to open up your participant panel, so wiggle your mouse on the screen, click on those pictures of those heads. What that will do is allow you to be able to open up your participant panel. From here, you'll be able to see a few different things. The main thing that we're focusing on is the yes and no icon. So let's go and click on one of those now. I don't mind which one it is. Go and click on the yes or the no, the tick or the cross, because they're a great way for us to be able to communicate together. So some of you are finding that. If you can't find it, don't worry. What Mike will do is share some instructions in the chat window on how to go and find those. So we'll use those at various points to kind of ask you questions as we go through. Also, what we've got is the chat window. So please make sure, again, you have clicked, wiggled your mouse, you've clicked on that speech bubble, you should have your chat window open, should be set to everyone already. That means myself, Mike, Blake, and everyone can see what you're typing. Please use that for your questions. We're making notes of those already, and we will come back to your questions in just a second. And also, if you've got answers for other people, recommendations, blog links, please do share those as well. We look forward to them. Verity, you're on a mobile app. It don't have the same tools, but you do have the chat window, so that's really good. So Labyrinth, you sent me a private question. If you send that again to everyone, if you want to, then I'll answer that. If you send it to Mike privately, he'll deal with that separately if you want to. Okay, so then we've got your questions. Thank you for that, Labyrinth. We've got loads of them already, so let me start running through these. So the first one from Helen. Helen says, hi Jo, hi Helen. How best to engage people in advance of the session, please? So this will depend a lot on what the course is that you're running. It will depend on the topic matter. It will depend, quite frankly, on the learning culture of the organisation you're with. How about one of those green ticks if you think, yeah, I give people pre-learning, pre-work, and they just never do it. Green tick if you're thinking, yeah, I give it to them, but they never do it. Yeah, quite a few green ticks coming through here, and I have the same trouble. So sometimes it's not about the pre-learning. One way of doing that is to go, well, actually, let's have our first session, traditionally face-to-face or live online as it might be now, and then have everything as resources and work in between those sessions. Other ways, it can be videos, it can be questions, it can be e-learning, it can be making sure you've got all of that information to people on how the session is going to run. So if you need more information, ask another question. If you've got thoughts on any of these questions yourself, do add them to the chat window. Jess says, is it better to train with your camera on or off? What are the benefits of either? Really good question. There's various bits of research around e-learning, that click next to e-learning, where actually having the video on can be distracting, or if you're in a more traditional lecture, having the video on can be distracting. I use it in longer sessions, certainly at the beginning, to say, hello, I'm a real person. Sometimes when we're having discussions or questions and answers, certainly in breakout rooms for activities, if you've got that available in your software. Other times, like today, it's a short session. It's very much about me answering your questions, and having that connection, I think, is quite important. The problem with it can be, as I said, it can be distracting, both for me as a facilitator, because I have to look at my camera rather than look at my notes or my chat window. So it can be distracting for me to be on camera. But also it can be distracting for you. If we've got slides and a busy chat window, it's like, well, where do I look? So sometimes it's not good to have that on either. And the other thing, of course, is bandwidth, especially at the moment. There's a lot of people using a lot of internet, and sometimes having that webcam switched off is a good thing. Berenice says, we need to deliver manual handling and people moving courses, very practical type of course. Any suggestions of how to deliver this type of session? Really important there, Berenice. And I think this is where you can use videos in your session. It's where you can use pictures of, where are people doing this maybe incorrectly, and you can use the whiteboard to kind of highlight, well, somebody's not bending their knees properly, or they're overstraining their back. You can watch videos and maybe pause it and go, well, what's likely to happen next, and have those conversations. Depending on the practical elements of your course and how you've designed the whole thing, if people have webcams and you've advised them ahead of time you're going to be doing this, they could do some practical things on webcam. Now, I'm not suggesting they necessarily demonstrate picking up boxes. That may or may not be the right thing. But there's lots of things you can do on webcam, or you can get people to do activities. The other thing is maybe get them to record videos of them doing something to submit to you or upload to a social network or Yammer or Slack or something. So there's some different ideas there, but I think definitely the video and the images with your whiteboard of what's gone wrong, what's going to happen next, what are the hazards, are one of the ways to go on that. Alistair says, a question, when running a Zoom session using PowerPoint, how can you organize or tile the screen so that chat and participant windows are neatly tiled rather than floating on top of everything? Can you do this as you can do this as a participant but not as a host? Really good question. I'm not sure if Mike is going to be able to find it. On our free community, I do have a post that I put in linking to somebody's video. Now, Mike, I'm really sorry, I'm going to not remember very well what the title of it was. Something like Zoom desktop setup, something like that. So if Mike can't find it, you can email me later and I will go and find it for you. What I do, and what I'm doing right now, is running my PowerPoint in a window. So if you go and Google PowerPoint run in window, something like that, what that means is rather than PowerPoint taking up my whole screen, I've got it in a window on one side of my screen. I've then got my floating chat really big, I've got my notes, and I've got my attendees panel. So that's how I do that to make sure that works. And hopefully Mike can find that link. And if not, Alistair, drop me an email or a tweet or something and I'll find it for you. But definitely the PowerPoint in a window is the way to go on that one, I think. Richard says, hi Joe, hi Richard. We're running lots of webinars now since lockdown, and as you heard from Blake at the beginning, you are not alone. Lots of people are definitely doing that. And we're enjoying doing it, says Richard, which is awesome. I've learnt loads. One thing I'm finding is that I'm a lot more tired after running a webinar than face-to-face. I manage this by running 45-minute sessions, then a break. Any thoughts? Richard, loving it. Loving that you're into it, loving that you're enjoying it. You're right, it takes a lot. Right now, I feel switched on. I feel pumped. I am kind of at 120% of Joe. You know, Mike will tell you, Blake will tell you, this is volume 11. Because that needs to come across to you. I need to be passionate and energetic. And also I'm paying attention, well, actually I'm not paying attention to the chat because I've got so many questions to ask and to answer. But we need to pay attention to green ticks, to slides, to chat. It is tiring. You do get used to it. But the 45 minutes, the break, sounds perfect. Loving that. And actually, Richard, there's a link on my community. Mike, can you go and get one of my latest posts off the community about what to do after a session? Because I find quite often I'm buzzing and then what should I do? But definitely take a break is one of those things. Okay, Jess asks, how do you ensure all learners participate? Do you use any tools? Really great question, Jess. And getting people involved is really, really important. One of the things that I do, and Mike will share a link to this in the chat, is I plan my interactions using my facilitator guide. I'm not going to explain all the details of this right now. There's a blog post where you can go and read everything. And what I do here is you'll see under technical on the right hand side, I've got what tool within the system am I using? Is it chat? Is it whiteboard? Is it a poll? And I've got the timing there as well. We should have a group planned interaction every 3 to 5 minutes. And that way, if you use something like this visually, you can see, well, I've got chat, whiteboard, chat, maybe the next thing needs to be open microphone and so on. There's also a whole load of different tools that you can use, some of which are free. And I'm just going to go and paste those into the chat for you. Things like Kahoot, Socrative, Menti, Mural, Jamboard, a lot of people are talking about those, so they're really good too. So I recommend you go and have a look at some of those. But it's about making sure that what you're doing is asking the right meaningful questions. So it's a combination of the right tool for the job. Serena asks, what is the absolute maximum length for an online session? I've made the move to academia from corporate world and they do things very differently. They definitely do. And some of those different things are really, really good and we could learn from them. Some of those things maybe they could learn from corporate. So it's about having that conversation. Serena, if he hasn't already, Mike is going to go and share a link to a blog post we have on kind of the virtual classroom in numbers. I don't think there is an absolute maximum length because it's to do with your quality of your design and the quality of your facilitation. It could be you do all day if you've done it really, really well. It could be that half an hour is the optimum amount of time. Most of the sessions that we run when we're running our training sessions on how to design and deliver virtual classrooms, they tend to be 2 hours with a 5-ish minute break in the middle. We have some that are 2.5 hours, but we also flex depending on what the needs are of the clients. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of insight. Labyrinth asks, which of the interactive tools are the most effective in group discussions and breakouts? Depends what you want out of it, quite frankly. So I would use breakouts if you've got webcam available, such as in Zoom and Adobe Connect. Use that because it's great for personal connection. Using whiteboards or slides in there are absolutely great. You've got the other tools that I mentioned there. Even just something like private chat to each other can be absolutely great for those things too. Now, I have seen a few private messages have come through to me. I haven't read those yet, just so you know. So if you do want to send a private message for something, actually it might be better sending it to Mike because I haven't been concentrating on the chat quite as much as I do normally. So let me come to some of the other questions we have. Helen says, is the recommended time frame for a plenary session versus a breakout room? So Helen, the way I understand plenary is it's usually once you've done your breakout, it's the coming back together to discuss the learning that happened within that. So if you are meaning plenary in a different way, please do let me know in chat. And I think it depends entirely on the learning need. Sometimes you don't need a plenary at all. The quality of the conversation inside the breakout room for the participants is what's needed. It's not about the debrief afterwards. So that's one angle you could take. In terms of how long should that be, I think it's probably more likely going to be dictated by whether you want just highlights, key points, summary, so that everybody's got an idea of the conversation, or whether different people are focused on maybe topic A, topic B, and you need that debrief so that the people who weren't doing the topic can learn from kind of information from others. Helen says plenary could also be the throwing of information at people. Yeah, so if you've got group one reporting back, I try and kind of say, well, what other questions do the other groups have? You know, we try and have an interaction around that and then a discussion, like what's missing, what would you add to their whiteboard, things like that. And I'm glad to see it's not your style, Helen. Another question from Emma, how best to do group work within a virtual learning platform? So Emma, I'd say it's all about the interaction from the beginning. So welcoming people, getting them on microphone if that's what you're doing, getting them to do things in chat and on whiteboards. All of those things start using the tools that you want them to use. And then it's about maybe having things like private chat. So in most chat systems, you can select who do I want to privately message. You can have a one-on-one conversation. After that, breakout rooms, if you've got them in your platform, can be really, really powerful. Even if it's just for 3 to 5 minutes for a quick conversation, or up to kind of half an hour or more for a bigger kind of activity. So I think that's really important. What else have we got? I've got some other messages here. Naomi, I'm trying to persuade my organisation to get Zoom for virtual training sessions. What would you say to persuade them it's a great idea? Loving that question, Naomi. So Naomi, is this kind of to get Zoom fresh, or is this to get Zoom instead of something? So there's the kind of two different questions. I would say certainly at the moment, it's almost a no-brainer, because what we're needing to do is obviously socially distance ourselves from other people. However, it depends. Your organisation might be saying, let's wait and see. Things might change. We might come out of whatever lockdown in whatever area you're in and go back to normal from what we were before. So it depends on kind of what the need is from them. Naomi says in chat, it's instead of the one we use at the moment, which is terrible. So I think, Naomi, what you need to be doing there is highlighting what the outcome is of the terrible platform. So it could be, you know, your version of Happy Sheets, where people are going, well, I learned something, but I didn't enjoy it, or it hampered the learning. You might need that kind of feedback. And maybe some stuff from individuals where they're saying it just got in the way of learning, it was clunky, things like that, to tell that story. Also, I think what a lot of senior leadership teams don't always understand is the impact. They just go, well, you've got product X, why do we need to pay more or extra for product Y? But if you can tell the story of, well, product X doesn't have breakout rooms, so we can't do this and this and this, which causes this impact. But with product Y, we can do this, which will have this impact. And I'd go down that kind of route. But also, the other thing I always say is it's making the most of what you have in the meantime, which I know might not be fun, it might not be easy, but that's about being creative and really learning how to use that tech in different ways. A question from Jackie. Does it work to facilitate a session for a small group where everyone can discuss points at any time through audio rather than use the chat room? Absolutely it can, Jackie. So that works really well if you've got a group of 3 or 4 attendees. I think much more than that, it can get a little bit more challenging to handle the audio on that. Especially with Zoom these days, we're actually much more comfortable muting and unmuting, being on video and kind of getting involved that way. So you could stretch that to a slightly larger group of 6 or 8 people maybe, if everybody's comfortable doing that. And certainly that's a way to go in and have that facilitation. You've just got to make sure you kind of, I don't want to say set the ground rules, but you do that contracting up front from the point of view about not talking over each other, obviously respecting people's opinions, but that tech point of view as well. Depending upon your software, it can be quite easy. If I mute myself in Zoom just for a moment, what you may have noticed is on my video camera, it shows that actually I'm muted. Let me show you again. Now, other systems do it in other ways. It might be just on the participant panel, but that can help. So Blake, Mike and I were having a chat before you all came here today. Mike was on mute. He unmuted, and therefore that kind of was almost body language to me of that leaning forward, taking a breath to say, I want to say something. So those kind of things can help with that. Somebody has said, I don't know who it is. Hi, Mike, I'm planning a virtual session for a group, and the manager has warned me there are a few participants that are really unmotivated and might disengage. What tips do you have to engage with the group, or do you have any tips on how to spot this as the facilitator? Great question. Thank you, Sarah, for that. So there's a few things here. One, great that the manager has told you. Two, why is the manager putting somebody on a course where they might disengage? There's some work that the manager needs to do there. And there's all sorts of research, the Lever, who was it? Lever and Lentum, transfer of learning research, anything from Charles Jennings, all about getting the manager involved in that. So I'd head that off at the pass if possible. I'd look at, if you know some of those people are going to be disengaged, what you might want to do is maybe send an email out to everybody, welcoming them, telling them the outcomes, why it's going to be amazing, what the experience is going to be like. You might want to phone a couple of people, including those who might disengage, and just say, hey, you know, I'm phoning everyone ahead of this. Just want to get, you know, what are your learning outcomes? What are you feeling? That might change the narrative for when they come into the session. From then, it's about welcoming them before you even start the session, getting everybody involved. And when you're doing this with a smaller group, unlike the webinar we have today, it can be calling on people and getting those good introductions and saying, hey, Hayley, let's get you on microphone, or hey, Kerry, can you contribute in chat? And getting them involved. And spotting it is just like spotting disengagement in any other session. They're the last to click the green tick. They put one word on the whiteboard where everybody's put two sentences, and so on. So it's using that digital body language. And Mike will share a hyperlink to our digital body language information about that as well. Elaine, will we be sent all of these links? What you can do, Elaine, at the end of the session on the chat window, there's three little dots. If you click that, you can save the chat and you'll have all of the comments and all of the links there yourself. Another question we have from, where am I on my list? I'm looking at my list that Mike's keeping for me of questions. Labyrinth says, what best practices are you using when designing your new workshops and converting existing material to online? Really good question. So again, we have a blog on this that Mike will go and share, our virtual session structure. So this is not that different from a normal session structure. But what we have here at the beginning, you have to teach those tools just like I did at the beginning of today. I want you to open the chat window and find where the green ticks were. Ask questions at the beginning. You know, it shouldn't be 10 or 15 minutes into the session where you're saying, everyone type in chat this, or green tick this. It should be literally within a couple of minutes. If you want people speaking on audio in your virtual classrooms, get them doing it ASAP. Literally, I teach people green tick red X, use it immediately. I teach people chat room, use it immediately. The very next question is hand up, who wants to unmute and have a discussion? And from there on in my questions, I'm kind of asking maybe for something in chat. And then when somebody types something in chat, I'm saying, hey, Bob, can you unmute and tell us a bit more? After that, that's my session structure. So hopefully that will help a little bit on that. And then it's going back to the facilitator guide. This is what I do when I'm either converting or designing from scratch. Each slide has its own row. I have the questions in there. I have what the producer's doing. or if it's just me in a session, it separates out facilitation from technical. I plan the different types of interaction, such as chat or whiteboard. And I do have this specific timing. For some people, they might be going, oh my God, you measure it down to the 30 seconds. Mike will tell you, I do not stick to this time. It's a guide. If we need 5 or 10 minutes discussing it, we will, and then we'll make up later on. So hopefully some of that stuff will help you when thinking about the kind of design that you're going to be doing. Gosh, you've got lots of questions. Let me see if I can get through the last few. Jess says, do you have any tips for managing a session on your own? At the moment, I can't see how I'm going to be able to refer to my facilitator guide, manage chat, engage and manage technology. Yeah, I'm going to go back to that facilitator guide for you, because that facilitator column is what I'm doing in terms of the delivery. The producer column, that's Mike's job. But if Mike isn't there for some reason, I still got those instructions that I can follow. I don't write a script, and I imagine most of you don't either. I've got the information there so that if me on a bad day or somebody else delivering has got information, but the questions I have in red, because they're the bits that I want to jump out, so that I'm kind of talking through this and I was like, oh yeah, what was my question? So I don't confuse it with something later. It's also about the design of your session. If you know you're delivering it on your own, take out content, put that in your blend, and make sure you have time for the questions. So if this were a virtual classroom session, I'd have less questions or more time, and I'd concentrate more on the chat window. Also, it's about perhaps there's somebody in your network or your organization that wants to develop their skills. Maybe they'll co-host or produce for you, and then maybe you can do that for them. So support each other as well as sharing the learning. Rebecca says, how do you keep people engaged to stop them being distracted with emails, web browsing, dogs and kids? Dogs and kids I probably don't have a lot of control over. In terms of the engagement, it's the facilitator guide again. I plan group interactions literally every 2 to 3 minutes. There's a question, there's an interactivity. Labyrinth, you sent me a private question. Yes, we do. Message Michael and he'll tell you more. And it's this interactivity that's important, getting people involved in whatever fashion is appropriate for your session, maybe on audio, maybe in breakouts. It's not talking at people. I'm really aware I've done quite a lot of that today, but it's a Q&A session, so it's kind of designed that way. Zoe says, how do we practice using Zoom breakouts? You go and do it, Zoe. So make sure in your setup of your account, i.e. on the website, zoom.us, it's switched on. So in Zoom, you have to switch on things to make sure that they're there. What I recommend you do is you have another person, or ideally another computer. If you have a second computer, even if it's your mobile phone or your tablet, what you can do then is you can click something and then look at your second computer and go, aha, that's what's happening for the user. And then if you can do that, and with maybe a partner, a friend, a colleague in your network, then you can start learning together to find out a bit more. So I've gone through loads and loads of different things there. I'm aware that I haven't even looked at the chat, and I really apologise if I've missed anything, but Mike has been pulling out loads of great stuff, and Mike will definitely pull out anything that I've missed that's really important. I will go back through the chat a little bit later on. I do just want to kind of ask you what it is that you have learnt from today. I'd like to know your reflections on what we're doing today. Alison, on a recording, we are recording, it will be emailed to you. Blake will send you a link. It will also be on YouTube. So what's your light bulb moment today, everybody? In the chat, please let me know, what learning nugget are you taking away? What's the little thing that you're thinking, yeah, that was kind of useful? So what's your learning nugget? And once we've gone through this, I'll hand over to Blake for a roundup. So some thank yous. Thank you all for being here. You've asked loads of great questions. I'm hoping that we've answered most of them for you. So some light bulb moments, having a virtual session structure. I'm not the only one with these questions and worries. You're not, Rebecca. Mike shared links to our community. He'll share it again. definitely come and join us and ask all those questions. Learn about interaction, PowerPoint in Windows, think about learning and designing in the session, the ability to save the chat if it's switched on, which it is for you today. Live online as a term, I'm having that, says Richard. Thank you, Richard. Use a second person to do the techie stuff. The pace was excellent. Yeah, so the pace is about what's right for your personality and your session. I'm not always this pacey, but we've got a lot of questions in a short amount of time, so pace is of the essence. All amazing comments, and thank you for the compliments as well. Keep those light bulb moments coming. Mike's sharing a list of resources on our community. Get in contact if you want to. But Blake, let me hand back to you. That was pretty fast and furious. But what have you taken from that today, Blake?
Well, firstly, Joan, I think thank you. The PowerPoint tip was fantastic. I think energy in the room, in the call, in the Zoom, energy in the Zoom, and we were talking about this prior to that. I think with all of this, and I'm looking at the questions, I think naturally we've all got a lot of questions. It can be a lot of overwhelm. There's so much to consider. And I think the key thing I would say right now is for people to use their network, because there's going to be a lot of people in the same situation. Joe mentioned about finding someone that perhaps could help you with the production or co-host. So perhaps as someone that you can help be their producer for a session, and likewise they'll be your producer in another session. We will be making all of this information available. There will be the recording. I'll send that through once that's ready. So I'd just like to say a final thank you to Joe. That's excellent. The 30 minutes has just flown by. We could probably do this for another 3 hours, I suspect, and your energy wouldn't even drop at all. So that is excellent. Or maybe it would.
I think I need more coffee. Thank you, Blake. It's been lovely working with you, and thank you, everybody, for a great session.
Thank you.